Hey there, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to learn about the Boston Tea Party. Now this is a big part of American history, and it really shows how the colonists were getting more and more upset with the way that Britain was treating them. So let's go back to 1773. The British East India Company was in big trouble. They had a monopoly on tea in the colonies, but they were losing money. In fact, they were losing tons of money because people in the colonies weren't buying their tea. Why? Well, because Britain had passed a series of acts which taxed the colonists without giving them any representation in Parliament. This meant that things like tea, paper, and even legal documents had a tax on them, and the colonists were not happy about this at all. They began boycotting or refusing to buy many British goods, including tea. And this really hurt the British East India Company. In an effort to save the company, the British government passed the Tea Act. This act gave the British East India Company a monopoly on tea in the colonies, meaning that they were the only ones who could sell tea there. And to make things worse, the act lowered the price of tea, so that it would be cheaper than the Dutch tea that colonists had been buying. But this was just a trick to get colonists to buy British tea. And also, it didn't help the British East India Company at all. The colonists saw this as a threat. If they bought British tea, then it would mean that they were submitting to the authority of the British government. And this was something they were not willing to do. Remember, they had no voice in Parliament, and they were being taxed without their consent. In the fall of 1773, 9 colonies met at the Continental Congress to discuss a plan of action. They wanted to come up with a way to protest the Tea Act without starting a war with Britain. They considered a boycott, but that wouldn't start until 1774, and by that time, the British East India Company would probably go bankrupt. So they needed something that would happen right away. That's when someone suggested a non-importation agreement. This is when merchants in the colonies would agree not to import or buy any British goods. This way, the British government wouldn't receive any money from the colonies, and it would hurt the economy of Britain. The merchants agreed to this plan, and it went into effect on December 1st, 1773. Now, the British government found out about this, and they sent a man, Thomas Hutchinson, to be the governor of Massachusetts. Hutchinson was a strong supporter of the Tea Act. He believed that the colonists needed to be taught a lesson, and he planned to do this by force if necessary. When Hutchinson arrived in Boston in 1774, things were already tense. The colonists were angry about the Tea Act, and they had formed a group called the Sons of Liberty to protest it. The Sons of Liberty had already done some pretty daring things. In 1768, they protested the Stamp Act by destroying the homes of some wealthy colonists who were loyal to the crown. And in 1770, they got into a fight with British soldiers, which ended with 5 of the soldiers being killed. So when Hutchinson arrived in Boston, he knew that he had to take action quickly. He ordered the port to be closed until the merchants agreed to pay the taxes on the tea that they had stored in their warehouses. He also ordered the ships carrying tea to be brought into port so that the tea could be unloaded. The colonists, of course, were furious about this. On December, a group of men disguised as Native Americans snuck onto 3 of these ships and dumped 92,000 pounds of tea into the ocean. This was done to prevent the British East India Company from selling the tea and making money off of it. It also showed the British government that the colonists were serious about their opposition to the Tea Act. And so that is the story of the Boston Tea Party. It's a really important moment in American history, and it really shows the growing tension between the colonies and Britain. Now before you go, I want you to click on that subscribe button, and then click on the link in the description below to take you to a website where you can learn even more about the Boston Tea Party. There are lots of great resources there for teachers and students. Also, be sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you thought of the video. I love reading your comments. Be sure to check out my other videos. And with that, I'll see you next time.